Hello, I'm Janna, and welcome back to the Crafty Corner. Today is day 8 of Spooktacular Crafts and Makes. Today we're going to be looking at a Tim Holtz Idea-ology alterations box. Now these have been discontinued and I was super lucky to find one on eBay, and we're going to be altering one from start to finish. This is going to be a two-parter, so enjoy part 1 as we alter the box and take a look at some of the first few configurations. If you'd like to see exactly which supplies we're going to be using, go ahead and pause here. All right, let's head over to the Crafty Corner. Today is going to be lots of fun. We're going to be playing with lots of Tim Holtz Idea-ology today. And we're going to be focusing on this beautiful vignette configuration box. I am so lucky to get my hands on this. I found this while I was doing a Tim Holtz haul of vintagey discontinued items, and this was one of my finds. This is super, super cool. And of course, this is going to be our Halloween themed configuration display box. I do plan on doing another one of these for the Christmas making season, but we have to start with Halloween. So fun. So let's take a look at the box in and of itself. So the box, it comes with a cover and it has a transparent, kind of like a window. Now the window, it looks a little funny right now because it actually does have a protective film on it. And when this box is all done, we will be able to peel that back. You can see that there is a film right here. But we're going to leave that in place until everything is all done. So we have the frame. I'm definitely going to do something with this. And we also have the entire interior of movable boxes. Now, I think that's pretty cool. There are many different ways that you could configure this, and I really like how on the back of the box, it actually gives you some suggestions on how to alter these. So if we wanted to, we've got 3 different configurations to choose from. I decided to go with this one, but I just switched this piece and that piece around. I thought it was going to make the most sense for the project I have in mind. Now, this is definitely one of my larger undertakings in terms of Tim Holtz projects, and these I really do have to plan ahead. When I'm doing cards and small things like art journaling, that's really a go with the flow and see what feels right in the moment. But something this large, and given that this is a discontinued item and I don't know if I'd be able to get a third one of these if I went looking for one, it's a little bit higher pressure, but no need to be intimidated. There are many ways to break down large-scale projects. Now, for me, I like to sketch my ideas when I'm about to dive into a really big project. So let's just zoom in a little bit, and I'm going to run you through my blueprint. So obviously it's going to be Halloween themed. So I drew myself a little box and I put each of the configuration elements in each box. And then I kind of sketched what I want to do in each little quadrant, and then I labeled them. Pardon the messy handwriting, but this is kind of just my brainstorming process. So the idea is we're going to be using some collage paper to alter the exterior of the box. That's going to be step 1. And then I'm going to be painting each of these little trays, and I'm going to go for black and orange just to stick with our Halloween color theme. Then we're going to pull in a lot of Tim Holtz Idea-ology papers to use in the background. Mostly I'm going to be sticking with some wood, but I also thought it'd be fun to add in some of this marbled paper. That stuff is really cool. So we'll be mixing and matching. Now, in terms of what's going into the boxes, I went through this year's haul of Tim Holtz Idea-ology, and I started pulling things from years past. So what I've come up with, we're going to be doing a book stack. Books are going to be all the rage this year. If you haven't heard already, Tim is doing a fantastic class, and it's going to be featuring some books in a Halloween special. So we're going to be making some books. We'll make a nice book stack. We'll put a skull on top. That should be pretty cool. Then I wanted to do like a pumpkin mochaccino. So I'm going to be taking one of the really cool jack-o'-lanterns that came back this year, these guys, And I'm going to be adding a little handle to make it into a coffee mug. And then we'll be altering that with some whipped cream and, of course, some candy treats. Then over here, I wanted to do kind of like a bubbling fountain drink. I'm thinking one of the urns could be really cool, and we could do some blood red bubbles pouring out of it. I might need some UV resin for that. Not sure, but it's an idea I'm playing with. And I have to do a candy corn cauldron. I don't know if how many of you watched Sabrina the Teenage Witch, but the episode where they have the river of candy corn, to me, is one of the most memorable episodes. So I want to have like a little cauldron bubbling over with candy corn. I thought that'd be really fun. Then over here, this part's making me really happy because I love apothecary bottles. So we're going to squeeze about 3, maybe 4 into these boxes over here. And I'll fill them with different fun imitation liquids. I'll probably use UV resin or regular resin to get a liquidy look going with those. So that's going to be lots of fun. Down here, I have a monocle that I altered ages ago that I've been looking for a project to put into. It looks shattered, so I thought we could add that in here, maybe get some spider webs going and put a really cool spider on the monocle itself. So that's one idea. Then down here, I want to do something with drippy candles, maybe a tombstone, make that all spooky. And then over here, I wanted to do like a little stash of pirate coins. There's a couple of ways we could do this. I've got some of the metal ones, but Tammy Bastian showed a really cool thing to do with one of the die cuts in Sizzix that made some pretty cool pirate coins. I might do both, but I'm not sure. I'll have to see what I have in my stash. So this is the basic plan for the box. So let's go ahead and start altering the box. We're going to start with the exterior, and then we'll move our way to the interior. My thought is if we do the exterior first, that'll give that time to dry, and then we can turn our attention to painting these and decoupaging the outside of that. So we're going to do the first little bit in real time, but then I'll definitely be switching things over to fast forward because this is going to be a lot of repeat. So we don't need to sit through all of that multiple times. All right. So for the paper, we've got these really cool poison labels. I really like these. I thought they'd be lots of fun. And I'm just kind of getting a rough idea. Oh, that's pretty perfect. All right, I guess I'm going to be kind of guesstimating how much I'm going to need, because I do want to kind of tuck that under, and that needs to go around. Okay, so about 2 labels per segment, and we're definitely going to be using a lot of collage medium today. So I think what we're going to do is cut about, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 segments of this, and then we'll get to gluing and see where we end up. I'm not really sure how much of the paper we're going to need, but I think 6 segments will be a good start. If we need more, we can always cut more. As you can see, I've got quite a bit on here. And I'm super excited to be using this up. Sometimes you have things that sit in the stash forever, and then that perfect project comes along and you just know exactly which thing you want to use. And I'm very happy that I was able to stash this. And now, even better, we're using it. This is the year of use the stash. Okay, one more. All right. Now, just to note, this paper is technically retired, but there's a very good chance that you might be able to find it floating around on eBay. All right, we've still got plenty left. So, just going to pop that right back into the jar for the moment. Let's grab our large jar of collage medium because this is definitely going to take a fair bit of glue. Now, for cutting, I did use my tiny tonic snips, my favorite go-to scissor for creating, though the recoils are also becoming a fast favorite. All right, so I thought maybe we'd start at the bottom and work our way over and around. So we're just going to be really generous with the glue. Just try to get as much of that on here as we can. And then I think we'll go in with the paper. Don't really have a good plan yet, so this is going to be a play it by ear. see what works and probably use a lot of glue. Okay, so we've got that. So just gently pressing that down. Trying to keep this as wrinkle-free as possible. I want this to look really smooth. There we go. So far, so good. It's looking very nice. I'm just going to use a little bit of that extra glue to go over the top to make sure everything stays in place. So far, so good. But we've got a long ways to go. All right, it's getting a little wrinkly on the sides, so let's just add a bit more glue. That will hopefully cut down on some of the wrinkles. The main thing is we don't want to use too much glue. If we use way too much glue, I could get some ripping in places that I really don't want rips. All right, so we're going to go ahead and put this on fast forward as we cover this entire section of box. Then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about what happens next and what the plans are. All right, let's go ahead and kick this on fast forward. Okay, we have finished collaging the outside of the box. That is looking pretty good. I like it a lot. Now, I do want to do something for the interior. Well, let's go ahead and paint that black. Now, I'm not using distress paint for this. Ooh, shocker. So, I decided to bring in something a little different. This is Micaceous Iron Oxide, and it is a lovely black paint, but it has just a hint of sparkle to it, which makes it really interesting. So we're going to take that and paint the interior of this just to keep everything nice and uniform. So that should go down pretty nicely, and we'll have a beautiful interior as well as an exterior. So just going to take that and paint that around those edges. And this is what I love about paint. Paint goes down really easily, and the dry time usually isn't too horrendous. But the main thing is I just wanted a solid color that's going to work. And I'll just finish up the interior of the box nice and quick. Okay. So you can see where we're going with this. We're just painting the interior, and when we're done, we'll be ready to move on to the next stage. All right, we'll be back in just a moment as I finish painting the rest of these sides. Okay, let's take a look at that interior, and here it is. It's got a little bit of shine, and it's a nice matte black. So we're going to set this aside, let it finish drying all the way. I'm going to move on to the next section of this alteration. So we have this box here. Now I'm kind of torn. On one hand, I really want to paper the inside of this, but on the other hand, the chances of us ever seeing the inside of that box are not very good. So I'm kind of thinking we might just want to paint the entire thing, and then we can jump on to painting these as well. So again, kind of torn. I've got lots of ideas for what this could be, but I'm thinking just to keep everything uniform, let's go with more of that beautiful black micaceous paint. I think that's going to make the most sense because right now I'm leaning towards doing these boxes in orange and purple. So we'll see how that works out. I'm not sure about anything right now, but we're going to try it and see how it goes. Worst case, I paint over everything if it's absolutely horrible. So we're just going to set these little boxes aside. And let's go ahead and start painting. Let's let's go ahead and put this one on fast forward. So we're going to do the interior, the exterior, and the edges, and probably the back. Actually, you know what? I don't want to do the back like that. I do want to paper the back because that might actually be seen. Yeah, I want to use this. And can actually paint around the edges and then glue this in. Okay, now I'm starting to get an idea. That works. That would look really good. Okay, I'm just going to give myself a mark, and I'll need to bring in a trimmer. Okay, now where'd my paper trimmer wander to? When I get into crafting, sometimes my supplies like to wander. But here's the trimmer. There's our paper. All right, so I'm going to paint a very thin bit of paint around the back part, and then we're going to glue down that paper. Okay, so just taking this and running that right along there, running another chunk along the side. Yeah, I think this is going to work out really nicely. I do love how the micaceous paint lays down. It's very pretty. Okay, and over here. Definitely gives a different feel to the whole project, and I like that. I like that it's different. Now for the paint, I found that over on Amazon, and as far as I know, it should still be available. It's kind of a specialty paint, so it may be a tad pricey. I got this ages ago, and I vaguely remember paying maybe $16 for it, so it wouldn't surprise me if the price has gone up since then. But I think it's worth it. It's cool, and there's other effects that you can get with this. Right now, we're just using it to add a little bit of texture to our vignette box. Okay, so we've got that. Now we want a good helping of collage medium. It's going to place that down. Spread that out. Now, the micaceous paint is really neat. As I'm adding the collage medium, I can actually feel the paint, and it is textured. There is grit in there from the mica particles. And it's kind of sandy when you feel it, so it's pretty neat. Okay, almost there. Just a little bit more glue and we'll be good to stick that paper down. Okay, I think that's good. Let's go ahead and grab that paper. I'm just going to take that and stick it down. There, that's all that needed. Now the back looks really clean and nice. Very happy. All right, so I'm just going to wipe my fingers off, and we're going to continue painting the rest of the box. Here is the finished interior box. So we've got our paint, we've got some paper, now it just needs to dry. The next thing we're going to be doing is altering the little boxes that we're going to be placing on the inside of this vignette. So the plan is to use 2 different Halloween colors to alter each box, and then on the interior of these we're going to be using paper. This is probably going to be the most time-consuming part of the project, but let's get started by at least determining which pieces are going to be which colors. So I decided to pull in some carved pumpkin and some villainous potion. I'm going to give these a really good shake. I'm going to put a little bit of paint off to the side, and I'm just going to figure out which of these are going to be which colors, and then we can really get into the painting portion. Okay, so I wanted to start with the orange. So I think the most obvious thing would be orange, orange. That's going to be purple. That could be orange, purple, orange, purple, purple. Okay. So I think I've got a base idea of how I want to organize these. So let's paint one of these together and then we'll kick it on fast forward. The plan is I mostly want the lip of the box to be a definitive color. That's the part that we're really going to see when we're looking at this vignette. So I'm going to try to be as neat as we can as we go around. So I'm going to do 3 sides for the moment, and then we'll do the 4th side later. I'm not going to bother with the back because we will not be seeing the back on these little boxes. So that will cut down on a little bit of time for painting, but mostly we're going to want good coverage. So just working our way around. It really shouldn't take too long to get these painted. The Distress paint is pretty liquidy and easy to work with. Okay, that's 2 sides, and we just need 1 more side and then we can set this one down. Like I said, we don't really need to do the back. Well, you know what? I probably can do that last side. It's going to be okay. Maybe I'll just get a little bit more paint on my hands than I bargained for. Oh, honestly, that's really not that bad. Okay. So I can do all 4 sides and then set it down on its base to dry, just like that. Okay, so that's already 1 cube completed. Let's go ahead and put this on fast forward as we do the rest of the cubes. Then we'll check back in and start working on the interior of these boxes. Next, we're going to be papering the interiors of the boxes. We have these all nicely painted, so now it's time to do something about the interior. So for the inside, I have got a whole bunch of papers. Mostly I wanted to go with wood grains. So we have a whole variety of wood-like pieces. We've got some different textures, some different colors, and we'll be able to chop these up and see what we can do. So I've taken a piece of paper and I measured the depth, and the depth is 1.5 inches. So I need to cut 1.5 inch strips, and then we'll be able to go around the interior of each box and line them. We'll worry about the flat part in the back later, but let's go ahead and start chopping up our paper. So we need things to measure at 1.5. Just carefully lining this up and chopping. So I think I'm going to do maybe two or three. Yeah, about 3 strips from each variety of paper. That way we've got some choice. Okay, so like right there, that's 3. Now I can set this aside and use this later for another type of background. Now let's go with this one next. I just love these Idea-ology backdrops. There is so much variety and lots of different colors. Now the nice thing about those holiday packs that we see every year is that they change them up just a little bit, so it always is fresh and interesting. And I just love all the different patterns that can be found. And this is this year's Halloween backdrop set that I've been pulling from. And I think I might be pulling from last year's as well. Okay, there we go. That's 3. Now let's go for another wood grain. Let's go with this one. Okay, one more. All right, that is looking pretty good. Now, do I want any more? Probably one more set. And then if we need more, we can always cut more. I'm probably gonna have some leftovers, but I can always incorporate those into some sort of collage. The main thing is to have a bit of variety so that no two boxes look completely the same. Visual interest in larger projects is everything. At least that's what I've found. So I like to have lots of variety on hand. So lots of different supplies. Okay, let's start with this little one first. I'm just going to roughly figure out about how much I need. So just putting my finger in, giving it a little crease, working my way around, creasing the next side. Oh, you know what? I want my metal remnant rub tool. That would be really good for creasing. So I can just use that, give that a much sharper crease. Work that over, press it, and crease. Yeah, that's working out pretty decently. Then over here, do another one. Oh, this is interesting. I'm short by just a little bit, but that's good to know because now I can grab scraps from the next little box that I do. Okay, so I think I might pre-measure these and get the pieces lined up and then do the gluing after. I really don't have a good sense of how much space each one of these is going to be taking yet. So this is still a little bit of guesswork. Unfortunately, I've still got plenty of paper left over, so if I need more, we've got plenty more. Like this one, it's gonna definitely take almost 2 strips. But now we know. So I think I'll do single strips first just to see where we're at and then go back and fill in some of the holes. Yeah, this is definitely going to be really interesting, but I'm loving that the measurements were being super friendly. Like 1.5 is pretty easy to remember, so that's going to be an advantage. And this tool is just perfect for getting stuff into those little crevices. Okay, let's see here. I'm going to do one of the little skinny ones next. Okay, and press that in. Pretty good. Definitely having fun with this. And if we have overlap, that's going to be fine. Ooh, I do like how that's coming out. Very, very neat. Okay, let's see. Let's go for this large one next. So squishing that all the way down and then going in with the little remnant rub tool to make my crease. That is just working out gorgeous. Very, very cool. All right, I actually think I can probably get my second piece in pretty easily here. Okay, take that. Working in the corner, bringing that over and around. It's going to have a little bit of overlap, but not a lot. Cool. It's like right there, we've already got one box that is pretty much covered. And we'll just have to fine tune it when we get the collage medium in here. All right. So let's just keep going and then we can get to the gluing. And I'm curious how much more paper I'm going to need to cut. Okay, and press, turn, make sure we're all the way over to the corner. There we go. All right. Oh, we are zipping right along, which is great. And now I should have a really good idea of which papers I'm going to need just a little bit more from. Okay, good. I've got one more box to at least get started. Okay, and press, turn, and press. All right, now I should have a pretty good idea of what I need more of. So I'm going to chop some more paper, and in the meantime, let's go ahead and kick everything up fast forward. We're going to start gluing and finishing up these interiors. All right, we have got the interiors of our boxes all nicely covered. Check that out. That is looking pretty good. So the next thing that we're going to do will be to add in our pieces into the interiors of the boxes. Now these I've already pre-measured and cut down as close as I can to fit each of these little compartments. So it's not quite exact because these pieces have been rather temperamental about being sized, but I can give you a rough guess to what the measurements are going to be coming in at. So for the skinny rectangular boxes, we are looking at approximately 2 inches and 3/4 by 1 inch and 1/8. That would be my best guess for that size of box. Let's do the large square one next. And I'm just going to take that, I've put some collage medium on it. I'm just going to push that right into the bottom and let it dry. So nothing fancy, just push it in and let it set. We've got a nicely decorated box, and we'll set that aside. Okay, so for the largest compartment, just checking to make sure this is going to fit, we are measuring in at 2.5 inches plus about 1/8. So it's going to be to the nearest ish. And again, we're just going to take that glue, smush that on the back, and then pop it right into the box. In this case, I think actually gluing in the box would not be very helpful. I think it's easier to glue outside the box this time and push stuff into the box. There we go. So that's 2. Now let's go for the medium-ish rectangle. Again, I'm just checking to make sure this is going to fit. So the medium rectangle is about 1 inch and 3/4, a little less than 3/4, by 2 inches and 3/4 exactly. So these compartments kind of vary, and it looks like they were completely handmade. So the measurements are not necessarily going to be the same every time you cut and measure. So I recommend doing your own measurements at the time when you're assembling, if you have anything like this. Okay, there we go. Now, I've definitely seen similar setups made out of wood, so I think you can find stuff similar to this at Michael's or Hobby Lobby, but I do know that this particular arrangement is discontinued in the Tim Holtz line. You probably could also do something pretty cool with some old vintagey pieces as well. All right, and the square is coming in at 1 inch and 3/4 on all sides. So 1 inch and 3/4 for the little squares. Okay, so that takes care of the basic measurements for each of the compartments. We'll be right back after I've had a chance to glue the rest of these in, and then we'll get to put them back in the box and see how the basic alteration looks. We have all of our little boxes altered. So let's put this back together and see how this entire configuration looks. So we have our base. Let's zoom out a bit so we can see what we're doing. There we go. And let's put these back together. So we're going to start with the littlest boxes on the bottom. Ooh, I'm already loving how this is looking. That is cool. This one over here. And then I think we're going to put these here. No, not those. The 2 little ones. There we go. Got the two little ones. Do I like that or do I like this better? Ooh, not sure. And then I've got my 3 tall pieces that are going to go here. Nope, I want to switch that. That's going to look better, I think. No, not really, because that puts too much orange in one corner. There we go. That is not bad. So we've got our entire section done. And now we can get on to the really fun part of putting the little pieces on the inside. So the second half of this video, we're going to be working on altering some of the Idea-ology pieces to go into this box. All right, now I just want to put the cover on too. Ooh, that looks even better. I love it. Very, very cool. Okay, so we're going to take this, set this aside for the moment, and begin our Idea-ology alterations. Now it's time to start filling these fantastic little cubbies with our altered ingredients. So we're going to start by working on the little box that's going to be containing the monocle, and then we'll be able to put all of our elements into the box. So I'm just going to open this back up and pull that one little box out so that we can make sure that everything is going to fit nicely. So I'm looking to do about 4 boxes today, and then you'll have to stay tuned for part 2 for the rest of them and the final reveal. Okay, so box number 1, and the monocle will be definitely able to fit in here. I'm just going to kind of prop it probably something like this at an angle, and yeah, this will be interesting. So we've got 2 things to do that are going to take a little bit of drying time, actually maybe a couple. First, I want to make sure that we have some spooky cobwebs in the background. So we're going to take a little chunk of mummy cloth. This is all Tim Holtz Idea-ology. Give that a quick snip and add a bit of Distress Mica Spray Stain because I want this to have a little bit of a sparkling tint. And for that, we've got some Empty Tomb. So I'm going to give this a good shake. Make sure that the mica is fully incorporated. Yeah, it's still pretty chunky at the bottom, so I need to keep shaking. But while I'm shaking, I can add a bit of water to this. There we go, just making sure this is nice and damp. All right, and just a couple of sprays. That's really all we need, and I can dab this around. Oh, maybe a little bit more color. That should be good. There, just smushing that. Okay, so that's good. I'm going to set this aside to dry, and we'll come back later to kind of pull this apart to make little webs to go in our box. But for now, we're going to move along and glitter a spider. Okay, I'm super excited about the spiders. There was a whole thing last year about the spiders being discontinued and going away, and well, me among many other people were definitely upset about that, and I did stash quite a few of these last year, but I was so excited to see these back this year. I really can't get enough of the spiders. So all that we need to do for this is open our little jar of Nightfall glitter. And I'm going to want the little tweezers. So we have the little squeezers. These are by Sizzix. Love those. And we're going to want a small dash of glossy accents. All we're doing is adding a little bit of shine and sparkle to the spider. So just carefully squeezing a bit onto our... Oh, that was a little bit too much. Let's see if I can't get a little bit of that going. Okay, too much glossy accent. Let's try that again with just a little bit. Don't need a lot, just enough to cover the back and the head of the spider. Okay, that looks all right. I'm going to grab the squeezers. I'm going to hang on to that spider and just dip it into the glitter. giving a quick tap. Okay, that will work. And again, we'll set that aside to dry. Next, we're going to be altering the monocle just a little bit, and I'm pulling in these transparencies. These are the Halloween transparencies, and we've got some really cool spider webs and some cracks. I'm not sure which I want to do, but I do want the monocle to look cracked. The spider web might work better than the actual... Oh, maybe not. I don't know. I'm gonna have to try both of these on there. So we've got like actual glass cracks right here. That does look pretty cool, but I almost wonder if the web would look better. So let me pull out a web piece and find out. Not really, so we're gonna go with this. And we've got two to choose from. I think we're going to use this one. Yeah, that'll work. So what I'm going to do is roughly cut around this. And I think we're going to hot glue this in place. Trying to cut down a little bit of the extra. I'll probably do a much more thorough trim once I've got the hot glue on here. Right. So that's that. We can put these away and get out our hot glue. I can use this for something else, and I do love the dirty glass, so I could definitely use that on another window at a later point. So we're just going to tuck that right back into the pack. All right, now for some hot glue. So working on the back, I'm going to put just a thin line of glue going all the way around. Just going very slow. I'm using the Shear Bonder with a fine detailer tip. Makes life so much easier. Set that down, put the glue gun down, and I'm going to place this. Okay, pretty good. And now that that is in place, I can go back and trim off the little extra bits. And I'm using the Tonic Recoil scissors today. Just a little bit more, and I think we're done. All right, I like that quite a bit. And the plan is to put the spider on here, and then we'll be able to stick that into here, but I'll want to put the cobwebs in first. So let's just attach the spider and then go from there. Go put the spider near the base. Ooh, I like it. That is going to work. Okay, now we want our webs. Now that we have our webs, we're going to be pulling this part apart because that's going to give us little wispy strands and it's going to look more like cobwebs. Okay, so I've got this chunk pretty good. Now we're going to grab the hot glue back and we're going to start putting the webs up in the back of the box. So, not quite sure how I'm going to do this, but we're just going to drizzle some hot glue in. And just stick this. Okay. So I'm just kind of poking that around. And we'll see how it works. Okay. not bad. Didn't need nearly as much as I thought I would. But I do want a little bit of glue over here. So I'm just taking the squeezers and kind of poking the webby bits in there. And I think I want some at the bottom as well. So again, we're just gonna kind of pull this apart. Not bad. And then we can add it. This is the fun of Idea-ology. Idea-ology gives you so many cool things to work with, and then it's up to you as the maker to create and alter them to fit whatever vision you are dreaming of. Okay, and I'm just going to take that, stick that down here. Good. That looks pretty webby. I like it. And now we want to add the monocle in. So I want glue right across the top and across the bottom because I think that's where it's going to stick the best. Okay, should be good. Now the main thing is I don't want to burn my fingers. So let's just try to get this in as best we can. Ah, my spider is trying to wander away. But I did get the monocle where I wanted it, so a little bit more glue to the spider and we can tuck him right back. There we go. Ooh, I like that. And I actually got some glue strands. Normally I'm fighting with glue strands because I really don't want them, but today glue strands are great. So I'm actually going to try to deliberately make a few. Okay, and I've got some deliberate glue strands in here. I like it. That is nice and creepy. Fun. Okay, so that is box number 1 already altered. I'm not sure if I want to add any words in here or not. I kind of like it as is, but I'm going to think about that. I might go back later and add a whole bunch of word stickers. So, thinking about it. All right, setting that little box aside. Now I want to work on the candy urn. So I've been dying to use the new chunky Distress Clear Rock candy. I've already got a handful of candy pieces that are made with the classic Distress Rock Candy glitter, and they're very sparkly, very fun. But I wanted to mix things up and do some chunky as well. So for that, we're going to want a scrap piece of paper. This will work. And I'm thinking I'm going to want to paint this on. So I've got a paintbrush over here. And I've got my glossy accents. So I'm just going to put a dollop of that onto the paper. And I've got a bottle of the chunky glitter right here, which I will be sprinkling with. I probably want another piece of paper to sprinkle on. Let's see. There, I can use that for now. Okay. So it doesn't matter if I get all of this perfectly covered because the base is going to be hidden inside the urn. But the main thing is we just want to paint this on and make sure that we'll have plenty of glitter to stick to it. All right. So I'm just going to sprinkle over this second piece of paper. All right, I love the bottle. It's so fun. All right, and let's just sprinkle. Okay. Pretty good. That's looking nice and glittered. I'll set that aside for the moment. And we're going to paint the other pieces. There we go. Oh, I actually might need more glossy accents. This is going on better than I thought. Also, I didn't realize I could actually just dip into the bottle. That seems to work really well. And look at that. I love it. That new chunky stuff is absolutely perfect for making sweet treats. And let's get this one painted. This is really satisfying. Okay, and we'll dunk it. Ooh, just look at it. It's so sparkly. Okay, and we'll put that down. Now we just have one more, and then I can start assembling these into the urn. So I want to do a mixture of spookiness and sweet. So right now we're doing one of the sweet treats. Again, that just looks awesome. Okay, so setting that down, and we'll just carefully dump the rest of that glitter right back into the container. There we go. I've already burned through one of these jars making my glitter palettes, so I know I'm going to be using this quite a bit. Already got a few more on order. All right, good. Now for the urn part. This part's going to be really simple. All we're doing is filling this up with lots of hot glue, and I'm adding a tiny pinch of glitter to this. As you can see, we've got our full glitter palette here. I'm so excited, and I had so much fun making this. I wanted to add just a tiny pinch of the grayish glitter to go into the urn, kind of to camouflage the glue ooze, but I should still be able to poke the candy in without much trouble. All right, got that. Let's move that aside. Here's the urn, and we're going to start poking in the candy pieces. So the more pieces we add in, the more interesting this is going to be. And I'm expecting a fair bit of ooze, so I want to sparkle all the things. That is looking sweeter by the moment. There we go. Get back here. Okay, I'm very happy with that right now. I'm just going to hold that for a moment. We're going to give that glue a chance to set up. And we'll be right back to take a second look. Here it is. That stuck together nicely. I'm glad I added a little extra glitter. It looks like we got kind of like some crystallized sugar going on. Now we're just going to slip the urn into its corresponding box, and we're going to add some hot glue to the base. There we go. And here is the base. Let's just slide that right in. Ooh, that left me with some glue as I didn't want. Whoop. Let's just get that off. And you know what? I can stick that to the bottom of a pumpkin, and we can put the pumpkin in. But I'm going to have a few glue strands to contend with. Okay. There. Added pumpkin, and let's try to get rid of some of the glue. There we go. Kind of can just rub that right off. Not bad. It's pretty cute. All right, and just getting the extra glue ooze off of these squeezers, and that would be another completed box. Very cute. All right, moving right along. Let's take a look at our next alteration, which is going to be the little books. So I made a whole bunch of these last year. You probably remember the Haunted Library. That was one of my biggest makes in a while, and it had over 70 of these books in it. So I've seen a couple of different ways to make the books. And this was the basic way that I was making them, just a bunch of folded paper and stacking them accordion style. So that was just one idea, but I saw something recently that caught my eye, and I like the idea of actually adding some text into the books. I think that's kind of fun. So first things first, we're just going to fold our covers, just folding along the printed lines, just like that. Let's see here. Holding there and here. So what we're going to do is we're going to stamp some basic computer paper, and I'm going to be staining it with some Distress Spray Stain Vintage Photo. Then we'll be able to fold the paper up and put them into each of the books. I just thought it'd be fun to make these a little bit more grungy and vintagey. As for these, I'm going to grab a Distress blending tool and just ink that so it's going to blend in. And we'll do that right this second. Another good way to do these that I've seen is to use actual vintage paper to fill the insides of the books. It looks cool, but I actually don't have any vintage books that I'm willing to sacrifice at the moment, so we're going to go the stamping route. Okay. So let's get our paper and let's stamp and build the interiors of these two books. Here is our plain computer paper, and the only thing that I'm going to do is distress this with some vintage photo. Now, computer paper is not the most ideal thing to distress. It is flimsy and it is more porous than I like using. However, it is the right size for putting books together with. Now, I just need to find the vintage photo and we will be all set. There we go. And you can see it's not good paper. This stuff is cheap, but it also does give an interesting effect with the distress. It does some really weird things with the way the color moves, and, well, honestly, it works for grunging up books, but I would never, ever use this for making a card. It just, no, it does not work. All right. So I'm going to very quickly dry this off, and then we're going to add some drip drop spots to make this look like aged paper. All right, so I need to be careful because if I move this too much, honestly, it's going to rip and then, well, there'll be problems. But let's dry it off and we'll be back in just a bit. Here is the paper now altered and water speckled. It's definitely chunky and it's definitely a little wonky, but for the purposes of turning this into pages for one of these mini books, it's going to work out beautifully. So to get words on here, I'm going to be pulling in one of my all-time favorite stamp sets. This is CMS 241 Ledger Script. And we're going to be stamping with Distress Archival ink to put words on the page. So I'm going to need a larger stamping block. And let's go ahead and ink this up. So lots and lots of ink. If it's a little splotchy, so much the better, because we're going for old, worn, and distressed. Okay, so we'll just take this, place that down, good firm pressure, and we're going to ink our way across the page. Okay. You know, I'm not even sure the computer paper wants to absorb the ink that well, so we could be getting something interesting. I'm not quite sure what. If the next one doesn't come out that well, I know this ink pad is juicy. I might revert to using some spray stain to do kind of a splotchy water stamping. Not sure, but we're going to try a couple of things if this next one doesn't come out the way I'm expecting it to. Okay, taking that, flipping it over, and let's see. It is a really big stamp, so I do have to kind of press all over it to make sure that it's going to stamp. Okay, that is not stamping the way I would expect it to. So, changing to plan B, I'm going to get some black soot and we're going to just spray that onto the mat directly. Then I'll kind of do like a watercolor stamping. That's okay. I don't mind trying something slightly different on the fly. Just keeps things interesting. Okay, so I've got spray stain on here. We've kind of splashed in the puddles. If it's a bit smudgy, you know what? That's going to look good. There we go. Very splotchy, but that's okay. This is just filler page, so it does not need to be particularly neat. I just want something that kind of looks like writing. And that kind of even looks water damaged, so great. Alright, moving right along. Stamp that out here. Yeah, I actually kind of like how that's coming up. It looks like a damaged manuscript, so that actually works out. And I'm probably going to crinkle this as well. Ooh. Okay. Cool. So I've got my manuscript page. It definitely looks worn, it looks vintage, and it looks like it has been pretty beat up, so I am happy with it. And the last thing I want to do is just give this a quick crumple. We're really going to beat this page up. That's okay. Great. So we have that, and now I'm just going to get a rough approximation. We're going to cut this down in a straight line, and then I can accordion fold. Alright, we'll be back in just a moment after we have our strips all ready. Here we have our 2 strips, and all that we're going to do is accordion fold these and then hot glue them into the books. So let's go ahead and put this on fast forward as we accordion fold, then we'll come back and add some glue. Now that we've accordion folded our pieces, let's add them into the books. So all I'm going to do is take some hot glue and run that right down the middle. We're going to take our book piece and stick that in. There we go, and I'm going to add just a teeny bit on the outer piece so that our covers stay together. Alright, so that's one book right there. Let's go ahead, do the same thing for the second one. Run it straight down, add a little dot here, add a little dot there. We're in good shape. Okay, sticking that right in, pressing, giving that a little hold. All right, we've got our vintagey books. I like that with the grungier paper. I think that's pretty neat. Okay, so next part, pretty simple. All we're doing is we're taking our books and we're going to be making a book stack. So nothing too fancy, just taking books and stacking them. But in order for things to actually want to stay in place, we're going to need the hot glue gun. So we're going to use that to glue our books together. Let's see, I want one of the nicer ones at the bottom and at the top. So I'm going to just take that, put a book, and I do want a little bit between the covers just so they don't want to keep flopping open. That is getting a little annoying. Alright, now more glue, another book, and another book. There we go. Pretty good. And last book. So there we go. We've got a book stack. Now the next thing I want to do is get that into its box. And that's going to be right here. Oh, that is a bit sloppier than I wanted. I was hoping this was going to be a little bit more compact. So let's see. I think it's because all the pages kind of want to fly open. Maybe I need to add a little bit of glue in between. Not sure, but we can try. Maybe that'll make it a little bit more dense. Okay, just try to squeeze that. That is getting a little bit better. There we go. I can kind of put that in there. Alright, so we're going to just glue that in. This is essentially going to be a bit of a mess, but let's just see what we can do. Just trying to get everything situated. There we go. That's feeling just a little bit neater. And I think I will stick a skull on top. There we go. That's working. Okay, so the last thing I want to do is add a skull. Put that right at the top of the book stack. There. Not bad. Not the best box, but you know what? I could make this better by adding in some cobwebs in the back. That would give it a more finished look, I think. So I'm going to take some of that leftover mummy cloth and we're just going to shred that. And then I think this box will look a little bit better. Because right now I'm not happy enough with it. It could definitely use more detail. So let's give it more detail. Now that's the thing, like sometimes you have an idea of what you want in your head and then when you actually make it, it doesn't quite work out the way you want. So then the only thing that can be done is to add more things, improvise, or completely change the idea that you're working on. Sometimes you really do get what you get and you don't throw a fit. Okay, so let's stick that into the back. A little bit of glue. Okay. Just take that, stick that in. Ooh, much better. I'm just going to kind of poke that around with the squeezers so that it's going to stick. There. Ooh. You know what? I like that a lot more already. That's better. Looks more spooky. Okay. And another box done. Now we're going to turn our attentions to some potions. Now for some fun. I've been waiting to do this part for a bit, and this part makes me super excited. We're going to be altering some potion bottles. I love these. And these are like the little apothecary bottles, and they've got the cute little cork pieces. And now we need to fill them up and make them look a bit more interesting. So I was thinking we could just go ahead and use some distress glitter to make some sparkling potions. And we're going to mix that with some glossy accents. So some of these glass bottles are round. I'm going to add just a tiny bit of hot glue on the bottom so they will stay upright while we are filling them. But the hot glue will easily peel off. So this is just so these little round ones don't roll away. Okay, those are good. And you just need to take the little cork out of this last one. What I'm going to do is grab the glossy accents and we're going to fill these part way with glossy accents. And then we're going to get some glitter and smoosh this around so we have all sorts of glittery goodness in each of the bottles. I've got so many of these little Glossy Accents bottles. I'm really glad I'm getting a chance to use them. Okay, not bad. That one's being a little weird. Alright, so all of these are filled. Now we're going to get the glitter. And I'm thinking I'm going to need a little bit of a paper slip to feed these into the bottles. Alright, so bringing the beautiful glitter palette back. I am so happy. I love this. If you want to know how I made that, there is a reel kicking about with all the details. Alright, so we're going to make this into like a little funnel, and we're going to add different colors of glitter. I think we're going to just go rainbow order because why not? Alright, so I'm just going to take a little scoop, put that onto the paper, and if we need more we can add more. But I love these containers. They're just the right size and very easy to fill. Alright, let's start with this cute square one. And we're just going to go really slow. Just gently tapping that in. And it's slowly filling up. Ah. It's kind of hard. That neck to the bottle is really, really, really thin. Now, for mixing this up, I think I'm going to have to grab a paper clip because that is just super, super thin, and I'm not sure I'm going to be able to poke that through with any of the other tools I have, so I'm gonna have to grab a paper clip. Okay, so I've got a blue one. Let's see what we can do. Got all sorts of glitter here. I want to get that into the jar as much as I can. Okay. Just going to give that a little mix, try to work it up the edges. There we go. Just carefully mixing that in. Not bad. Might need a little bit more glossy accent, but I think that's going to work out okay. And then I can put a cap on it. Yep. Yep, we've got like a potion in there. It's not bad. A little bit more glossy accent. And I think we're just going to cap this one off. There. So that would be potion number 1. Let's go ahead and put the rest of this on fast forward. We'll change the camera angle and make the rest of our little potions. Now that we have all of our potion bottles altered, it's time to add them into their little compartments. And we're going to do 3 in each box. Let's grab the hot glue, and we're going to be going in rainbow order. So we're going to start with this little red one first. Just take that, and it's going to get placed right here. Then the orange one. There we go. That's going to slide right into the middle. Do have a little bit of glue ooze, but I can easily wipe that up. Then we got that cute little yellow one. That one came out really well. I like that a lot. Okay, that's row number 1. And now for the second row. Start with the green. Just sliding that right in here. I've got a little bit of glues again. Not a big deal. I can easily get rid of that. Then for the blue, and then the purple. I'm very happy with the way these turned out. The chunky glitter makes great potions. Very cute. All right. And final bottle. Just shoving that in, turning it. There we go. All right, and there are the potion bottles. So let's take a quick look at what we have done so far with this Idea-ology alteration. I'm still super excited. I even found this tray because it has been discontinued and I didn't even know it existed, so I'm super happy I've gotten a chance to play with it. So this is what we have so far. We've got our little creepy book nook. We've got some vintage candy. We've got our rainbow potions. And then we have our creepy monocle with spider in the bottom. So next time we're going to be working on filling the rest of these boxes. Thank you so much for joining me here today at the Crafty Corner. And until next time, happy crafting.